Who exactly was the Riverdale Reaper?
Riverdale is finally back after a week off, and Josie has a secret admirer, Jughead finds himself in hot water, and Betty and Veronica find out a secret about Sheriff Keller. So let's break down Season 2, Episode 7 right here on What Happened. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Riverdale recap. Now, after they gave us a week off to relax and kind of recover from the Thanksgiving food we all sat and ate, the hit CW show is back with an episode that's different from the ones we've seen so far in the show. It kind of intertwines three stories taking place at the same time, but in a really eerie horror thriller kind of way. It's all initiated by the Black Hood, who has left a letter on the door of Pop's saying that he killed Mr. Phillips, the Jingle Jangle Man, and the town has 48 hours to basically show the Black Hood they're pure of heart, or he'll take up his sword again. The big things revealed in this episode are that Josie has a secret admirer, and it seems like all signs point to that person being Cheryl, so I'm guessing that unexpected love interest that Madeleine has been teasing for a long time now could be this storyline. Betty sets out to prove that Sheriff Keller is the Black Hood, while Veronica thinks Sheriff Keller is just having an affair. Veronica is ultimately the one whose theory is proven right. Also, Jughead ends up getting tricked into being the new delivery boy of bad things, probably stuff like Jingle Jangle, drugs, whatever, and he's tricked by Penny Peabody. Also, there might be a connection between the Black Hood and a killer from many years ago, the Riverdale Reaper, who killed the family at a house that probably seems pretty familiar to Betty. Yeah, let's dive into Chapter 20, Tales from the Darkside right now. Our three tales follow Archie and Jughead, Josie, and then Betty and Veronica, and they all end up merging together at Pop's. First, let's talk about Josie's dark, twisted tale. She likes to stay late after school to work on her solo songs, and it seems like she's becoming buddy-buddy with a really creepy janitor who lets her stay after hours. The mayor is pretty paranoid about Josie staying out late, especially by herself. She's so worried, in fact, that she moved the family to the 5 Seasons because she doesn't feel safe in their own house. It also seems like the mayor has been receiving a lot of hate mail from the town, and among those nasty letters are a bunch of death threats. And now the mayor is extra worried because the last letter she received mentioned Josie. Well, the mayor isn't the only one receiving creepy letters. Josie is as well, in fact, and she hides that from her mother and the sheriff. Now, in Josie's storyline, we get to see a bunch of the Josie-Cheryl friendship. When Josie is talking to Cheryl out of her locker, she finds a teddy bear with a note that says, "I'll be watching you," inside. Yeah, totally not creepy, right? Seems like a normal gift. Yeah, no. Josie seems pretty on edge because this is the 3rd gift she's received that week from whoever the secret admirer is. And with the Black Hood, being around cleansing sinners, she may think it's from him, and she thinks that she could be on the sinners list. But why would Josie be on the list, you may ask? Well, to say thank you for beating the crap out of that douche Nick St. Clair, Cheryl sent the video of Josie and the Pussycats singing Milkshake to a record producer, and he's actually interested in Josie, but only her. So Josie's been working on solo songs about the Pussycats behind their backs, and she's pretty worried about this whole situation. To complicate things even further for Miss Josie, Melody and Val do find out what Josie is up to and dump her. Josie calls Cheryl out for being too controlling when Josie decides to take a eucalyptus steam instead of going to the recording studio. Also, Chuck Clayton is back and asks Josie out. Now, he's claimed he's changed, he's going to church more, he's taken up art classes because he wants to draw comics for kids' books. He's really trying to turn things around, and it actually kind of seems in this episode like he is actually changing. Josie, though, doesn't buy his new image, and she's not the only one. Josie does say no to the date, but when she's at school late again one night, she hears those creepy noises that totally give me some Stranger Things vibes here, and she ends up running straight into Chuck and asks him for a ride home. They end up at Pop's, and she insists it isn't a date, but if you're kind of doing the twist at Pop's after sundown, I'd kind of say it's a date. Since Josie was too busy doing the mashed potato with Chuck, she didn't notice her mom texting her and calling her all night, so when the mayor and Sheriff Keller show up at Pop's, it's not a pretty sight for Josie. In fact, the mayor orders Chuck to stay away from her. The next day, Josie fills in Cheryl on everything, and Cheryl keeps telling Josie Chuck hasn't changed, he's the bad guy, and we also see shots of the creepy janitor watching them, so he has to come into play in a big way somehow, right? He's being highlighted. The girls then find another present awaiting Josie in the music room, and it's a drawing of Josie that has a message on it that says, "If I can't have you, no one can." And then inside the box is a pig's heart. Yeah, talk about a romantic gift, right? Cheryl immediately takes Josie and marches up to Chuck and accuses him of being the worst and leaving Josie all those notes and presents, and Cheryl just goes off on him, doesn't even give Josie a chance to really process what had just happened. Josie's now caught between a rock and a hard place because when the janitor shows up asking what's wrong and if Chuck Chuck really did what Cheryl's saying, Josie just ends up agreeing with Cheryl, saying that Chuck has been the one stalking her. Well, Chuck actually isn't the guilty party, as Sheriff Keller can't find any evidence in Chuck linking him to any of the letters or the presents. Josie's still freaked out knowing that the real stalker is out there, and she even still thinks it's the Black Hood, and in a scene that we think Josie's going to die, it ends up being a dream, as we see the Black Hood slit Josie's throat. So who is Josie's stalker or secret admirer? All signs point to Cheryl, who we see sitting at home drawing a sketch of herself and Josie. It kind of makes sense now when you look back at the episode and you see that Cheryl was always touchy-feely with Josie the whole episode, like rubbing her back the entire way down the hallway, just always kind of unnecessarily touching her. And also, she was so upset with Josie going out with Chuck that she immediately just blamed Chuck for everything before Josie could even process what was happening. She basically pulled out her controlling ways. This bit of the story reminded me of those kind of classic teen obsession films like Swim Fan and Fear, but let's hope Cheryl doesn't take things that far. Next up, let's go with Jughead and Archie. Jughead and Betty we see sitting in bed discussing the recent events of what's been going on when Jughead gets a call from that evil lawyer, Penny Peabody, who wants to cash in on the favor Juggy promised her. They meet at Pop's and Jughead says he's not going to do the favor, he'd rather just pay her off, but sadly, since he only has 18 bucks to his name, that deal is not going to work. Penny then says, well, you're just going to have to do this favor as more of a job because FP was jumped in prison by the ghoulies and he's in bad shape. Now, because Jughead thinks he needs the money to help out FP, and Penny promises him that his cut of the money will be used for FP's case and to get FP early release, Jughead reluctantly agrees to do this one-time job. And that job is transferring a crate from the south side to an address in Greendale. But what's in the crate? I mean, we kind of know it's gonna be drugs, but Penny just says it's pancake mix. Oh, and Penny has just one word of advice for Jughead. Don't be in Greendale after midnight because crazy, spooky things happen. And well, since that's where Sabrina the Teenage Witch is from, I'm guessing that means that she could be responsible for some of that spooky shiz. Since the crate's pretty big and is not going to fit on Jughead's motorcycle, he enlists Archie to bring his dad's truck. And Archie agrees because he still feels bad about the whole deal he made with Sheriff Keller about the ghoulies. They pick up the crate and drive to Greendale, and it's a pretty dang awkward drive. It's mostly silence, but it gets even more awkward when Archie finally talks to Jughead, asking him how long he's going to be a serpent. Archie then also decides it's a good time to kind of spill his hopes and dreams to Jughead, and says that he's always pictured the two of them skipping college and becoming roommates in New York and trying to be a writer and a musician while Betty and Veronica are roommates on Park Avenue. Archie then warns Jughead again that, his path is a dark one, and if he stays on this course, he could end up in jail or worse. And to just make the whole thing even worse, they get a flat tire, and of course they don't have a spare. You would think Fred of all people would carry a spare tire with him. Also, it wouldn't be a proper twisted tale unless one of our groups got stranded on the side of the road. Eventually, a creepy old dude pulls over to help them for the fee of, well, Jughead's $18. But the catch is, he only has room for the crate and one of them, so Jughead goes while Archie stays and gets the tire fixed by Triple C. Now, this old dude is very creepy and tells the boys to not look under the tarp in the bed of his truck, but since flies are buzzing around, yeah, the curiosity is growing, and Jughead does take a peek, but the only thing under it is a dead deer. Creepy old dude is then hungry, so he and Jughead, or more so he, grabs a bite to eat. Now, thanks to this old dude, we learn the story of the Riverdale Reaper, who killed a family in a house years ago out by Fox Forest, and it was a family with 2 kids. The Reaper shot them all dead, going room by room, and there are many theories about what happened to the Riverdale Reaper after those murders, and some, they think that he never even left town. So maybe the Black Hood is, the next cycle of what the Reaper started. The old man then tries to dupe Jughead into paying and getting left behind while he runs off with the crate, but thankfully Archie shows up just in time, and he and Jughead hit the road once again to deliver the crate to some little old woman in a wheelchair. When she tells the boys to not be late next time, Jughead's like, wait a second, I thought this was a one-time thing. Well, the old lady points out that the snake charmer Penny said that the serpents were taking over for the ghoulies and that there'd be a regular delivery with a regular delivery boy, and that boy is Jughead. Yeah, Jughead got played. Now, let's hop over to Betty and Veronica. Jughead and Betty are in bed together, like I previously said, but Betty is discussing how she thought she had outsmarted the Black Hood, and she thought that, what she was doing for Mr. Phillips would keep him safe, but she was totally wrong because obviously he ended up dead. She then ponders how the Black Hood got into the holding cells, and she stops herself from saying out loud something that's just too crazy, but we all know what she's thinking. It's the beginning of her theory that Sheriff Keller could be the Black Hood. At school, Kevin confides to Betty and Veronica that his dad is so stressed out by this Black Hood case and that the town town is turning on him that his dad just doesn't seem like the same person anymore. Betty and Veronica then come up with different theories about what's going on with Sheriff Keller. Betty thinks he could just be the Black Hood, while Veronica thinks he's just having an affair. They then set out to prove their different theories. Betty pretends that she's writing an article about Mr. Phillips for the paper and asks Sheriff Keller how the Black Hood got into the station. Sheriff Keller, of course, has all the answers and shows her that the back door had been pried open from the outside and their overnight deputy had fallen asleep, and yeah, it was kind of easy for the Black Hood to get in. Veronica, meanwhile, her plan consists of having a sleepover with Kevin. After Kevin goes to sleep, Veronica calls Betty, and then Veronica goes snooping throughout the Keller house, finding that Sheriff Keller keeps his office locked. When she goes down to the basement per Betty's request, she finds Sheriff Keller working out, and I ain't gonna lie, this dude, he is looking good and buff. Veronica lies about needing a drink and then tries to, ask how Sheriff Keller's doing in kind of some really awkward ways. She then notices that Sheriff Keller sneaks off in the middle of the night and doesn't return until about 4 a.m. At Pops the next morning, Betty's convinced that Sheriff Keller snuck out and then pushed some drug addict in front of the train as the Black Hood, but Veronica, she's still not convinced and tells Betty to kind of be careful with all these accusations since it's Kevin's father. So Betty, still on her mission to prove that Sheriff Keller is the Black Hood, goes back to the Keller household and waits for him to leave. She then breaks into the house courtesy of the spare key that's just hidden under a pot on the front porch, which is kind of dumb because you'd think if you're the sheriff, that's the last place you'd want to hide your spare key. Betty breaks into his office and sees all the evidence and things from the case on the wall and discovers the Black Hood in his desk. Well, unlucky for her, Sheriff Keller returns and meets with her and Hal at the police station. And I'm not gonna lie, the way Hal acted in this scene seems still a little suspicious. Sheriff Keller does explain though that the Black Hood is from Archie's locker, and then he shows Betty his logbook of where he's been each night of those crimes that have happened by the Black Hood. He also says that he won't tell Kevin anything about what's been going on because he knows that if he did, it'd just break Kevin's heart. And we already know that Betty's on pretty thin ice with Kevin, so it's kind of a good thing that Sheriff Keller is keeping his mouth shut. Even after all this, Betty is still convinced that Sheriff Keller is hiding something, so she and Veronica go out on another stakeout and follow him to what I think was called the Shady Tree Motel, literally, and they find out that he's having an affair with Mayor McCoy. Now, all three groups are at Pop's diner. We have Jughead and Archie who are talking, and Jughead brings up how the Riverdale Reaper could be a big lead into this Black Hood case, and that maybe, he and Archie should go to the library the next day to check it all out. But Archie, he's got excuses. He's too busy to make it the next day, so he's kind of like maybe the day after. And you kind of see this look of sadness and disappointment on Jughead's face as he kind of feels like he's losing his friends or that he's being left out. He decides to leave Pops to go see FP, and there he discovers that FP's face is still as pretty as ever, so Penny just freaking lied to him. Jughead goes to confront Penny, which is probably a bad move because we know she's shady AF. And it turns out that she has footage of Jughead and Archie with that crate delivering it, which means it's blackmail and she's going to use it to give to the cops if Jughead doesn't do what she says or if he does something she doesn't like raise his voice at her. It turns out that FP made her a promise years ago and he didn't keep it, so she's collecting his debt through Jughead. So what could this favor have been? Back at Pops, Betty can't believe that she was wrong about her whole Sheriff Keller theory, and she and Veronica discuss whether they should tell Kevin or not. Meanwhile, Cheryl is once again rubbing Josie's back and sitting on the same side of the booth as Josie as she sips tea. Then the phone rings in Pops, and Pop relays to Archie, Josie, Cheryl, Betty, and Veronica what that call was. It was a call from the Black Hood, and he said that their time is up and they failed his test. Now, the reckoning is upon them. Dun dun dun. Okay, so this was actually a fun episode, and I liked that it was done a little differently than past episodes. It really kind of got that tension building and felt like 3 mini thrillers in one. The Riverdale Reaper obviously is kind of a big clue. The old guy said that the family that was murdered was killed in their house out by Fox Forest, and the house that the Black Hood ended up leading Betty to was on the edge of Fox Forest and it was abandoned. So this has to kind of be the same house, right? We know that there apparently were no survivors from this big Riverdale Reaper murder, but is the Reaper actually still out there? What is the importance of this house? And if the Reaper and the Black Hood are connected, just how? I mean, the Black Hood had to lead Betty to that house for a certain reason, right? As for Chuck, I really do feel like he was starting to genuinely change, but then, his chances were blown because of people like Cheryl and the mayor. Cheryl just manipulated Josie the whole time because of her obsession and not wanting Josie to be with anybody else. So she manipulated Josie into going along with the plan that, Chuck was to blame before Josie really even had a thought in her own mind. I honestly feel like I would be a fan of this Cheryl and Josie possible ship if it didn't play out this way. Like, why do we have to have Cheryl basically being an obsessive stalker? Like, if they got together in a normal kind of regular way, I think it'd just be better. The note with the "if I can't have you, nobody can" kind of thing was just a little too much and pushed it over the edge. Like, why can't we just have Cheryl do things in the normal human way that we've seen her do before? Then we also have the chilling words that Pop shared about the reckoning being upon them. So does that mean one of our characters is going to end up dying now? Because I feel like that would be the next big move. Like, it has to be if the Black Hood is really going to kind of make a statement, right? But who would he choose? Because pretty much all the characters in town are sinners. Let's see if the promo for next week has any clues.
I love you, Ronnie.
I want to be with you. Can't that be enough for right now?
My dad is getting out of jail.
I want you to go to college, get out of this godforsaken town. Good times, bad times. It's been a wild ride.
Okay, so Cheryl and Josie are in the locker room, and I'm guessing that they're actually wearing towels. And once again, you can see that Cheryl is touching Josie's back, and it seems like they see something that shocks them. But what? There's lots of Archie in the trailer. FP's getting out of jail. Hallelujah. He can maybe go take care of Penny. But who is this guy in the tire with a gun or something? And why is there the shot of the creepy janitor? Is he the Black Hood? Is he the one who maybe is actually obsessed with Josie and we're just trying to pin it on Cheryl? The next frame also shows that Betty's either looking like she's posing like Rose in the Titanic, or that she's kind of been knocked out and, maybe wakes up in the creepy janitor's lair. I don't know, but the janitor has to be significant, because why all of a sudden are they highlighting him so much? If he's actually been the Black Hood all along, I'm not really sure how I'd feel about that. There was also an interesting theory floating around on Reddit recently. The username I can't actually remember right now, so forgive me, but it was basically saying that Penny Peabody, that lawyer, could be the Black Hood or is controlling the Black Hood, and that maybe she's actually Betty's real mom and she's Alice's sister, since we know that Alice is from the South Side. I mean, that sounds pretty interesting and twisted to me, so I'm very invested on who this Black Hood is. Alright, that wraps up this week's recap. Let me know all your thoughts on the episode and your new theories. What do you think about the discovery of Keller and Mayor McCoy's affair? Is this Riverdale Reaper connected to the Black Hood? Are they the same person? Or, is the Black Hood the kid of the Riverdale Reaper? Is Cheryl really obsessed with Josie, or was that just to throw us off? Is someone else up to something? What does the janitor have to do with anything? I don't know, so many questions. But after that, you can click right over here to check out my recent recap of Runaways on Hulu. If you haven't checked that out, you really should. It's a good show. And if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe. My name's Lisa. I'll see you next time.